5 people are dead, another 23 injured and hospitalized after a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's southern port of Odessa. The former International Humanities University's reception house, also known as Harry Potter's castle, was damaged in the strike. It's the residence of prominent former MP Serhiy Kivilov who is among the wounded. It houses the Odessa Law Academy run by Mr. Kivilov. Russia has not commented on the airstrike, but firmly maintains it was targeted military and military-linked sites only. Meanwhile, United Nations sanctions monitors say debris from a missile that landed in the Ukrainian city of Kyiv on January 2nd was from a North Korean Hwasong-11 series ballistic missile. In a 32-page report presented to the Security Council Committee, the UN sanctions monitors concluded the attack was in violation of the arms embargo on North Korea. North Korea has been under UN sanctions for its ballistic missile and nuclear program since 2006. Those measures have been strengthened over the years. 3 sanctions monitors traveled to Ukraine earlier this month to inspect the debris and found no evidence that the missile was made by Russia. It could not independently identify from where the missile was launched nor by whom. The Russian and North Korean missions to the UN in New York did not comment to a request for comment on the monitor's reports. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has praised Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for his leadership and bravery of Ukrainian forces and people, but acknowledged that leadership and bravery alone cannot repel Russian forces in the country. He's acknowledged Ukraine has been outgunned for months, while fewer Russian missiles and drones have been shot down. The Ukrainian president announced on Monday his country will join NATO after defeating Russia's full-scale invasion. The meeting held in Kyiv, where Stoltenberg came to visit.
And I have been clear that if allies face a choice between meeting NATO capability targets or supporting Ukraine, they should support Ukraine. To replenish our stocks, we need to produce more. So I welcome that allies are stepping up defense production and also working to produce together with Ukraine. Well, I really believe that Ukraine's rightful place is in NATO, and therefore I'm working hard to ensure that Ukraine will become a member of this alliance. To have that decision, we need all allies to agree. We need consensus. We need not a majority, but actually 32 allies to agree. I don't expect that we will have that agreement by the summit in July, but I really hope that we can demonstrate that we are moving Ukraine closer to membership and that the day will arrive as soon as possible for us to have Ukraine as a full member. NATO allies have not delivered what they promised. The United States spent months not agreeing a package for Ukraine, and European allies have not delivered the amount of ammunition they promised. And this has had serious consequences on the battlefield. The lack of ammunition has enabled the Russians to push forward along the front line. Lack of air defense has made it possible for more Russian missiles to hit their targets. And the lack of deep strike capabilities has made it possible for the Russians to concentrate more forces. And we see the consequences of that now. The biggest risk is if President Putin prevails and if President Putin wins. And the biggest cost is if Russia wins in Ukraine. Because then we speak about enormously much bigger amounts of money, a much bigger amount of money that NATO allies have to invest in our security. So supporting Ukraine is the best way to ensure our own security. And that's the message to NATO allies.
Joining us now is the VOA's Anna Chudakova. She's in Kyiv. Anna, great to see you. And the NATO Secretary General, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg was in Kyiv yesterday. And I just was commenting to my colleague here that Kyiv does look relatively safe. I mean, for Jens Stoltenberg and President Zelensky to be outside, out in the fresh air, the spring weather, just enjoying it, and then speaking to the press. It must be relatively safe there.
Good evening. Well, some experts actually say that Kyiv is currently the safest capital in the world, which is, positive and negative, of course, because the level of danger for Kyiv is probably also the biggest if we consider other states. Well, except of some of the states, but it's definitely among the in the top of the list. So yeah, Kyiv is relatively safe, of course, when Ukraine has enough air defense missiles, because when Kyiv is attacked, usually Russian forces use hypersonic and ballistic missiles, and these kind of missiles are only possible to hit with specific equipment, with Patriot systems, and yeah, and of course Kyiv has the systems in action, but as we can see for the past with the past attacks, some missiles were more difficult to hit because, and if we're talking about the latest biggest attack on Kyiv and outskirts of Kyiv, when the thermal station was destroyed, Kyiv, even then, Kyiv did not have enough missiles to fight and to destroy all of the missiles which Russia launched. So relatively safe at this point, if we're talking about the fact that well, the aid package is coming, and we know that a lot of ammunition for air defense is coming within this package, then yeah, we can say that Kyiv is quite safe, and especially Kyiv is safe when there is no air raid alarm, and it was no alarm yesterday when Mr. Stoltenberg was in Kyiv.
Yes, and I've noticed that for most of the high-profile visits, except just a few of them, where there were attacks on Kyiv as they visited President Volodymyr Zelensky. But back to Jens Stoltenberg's visit and what he said at that press briefing. He says it's not too late for Ukraine to join NATO. More support is on the way. Does it seem like that to Ukraine, this support it's receiving from NATO, the possibility of a NATO membership?
Well, it's a complicated question at this point because, of course, Ukraine aims to join NATO, and Ukraine, and there is understanding both within the society and also among experts that probably Ukraine, after the war ends, Ukraine will be one of the most experienced country in the modern world with such scale of war, because, well, after the World War II, the world did not experience this such scale of war on the territory of Europe. And everyone understands that definitely this would be a great asset for NATO. At the same time, Ukrainian military system, which was quite different from NATO system before the start of the full-scale invasion, especially it is changing because Ukraine has just no other options. Ukraine is receiving support and ammunition from the allies, and Ukraine needs to change internal system within the armed forces in order to be able to use this kind of weapons, and also the training is undergoing in order for Ukrainian soldiers to be able and to have enough knowledge and training to use certain kind of equipment, ammunition. So this is changing internally, and as President Zelensky actually mentioned, that when time comes and there is a belief that when war ends, Ukraine will have much greater chances to join NATO than while the war is still ongoing. Of course, then, as President Zelensky said, Ukraine will be experienced enough, and Ukrainian military system, internal military system, will be appropriate for NATO, which is definitely the case. And it looks like Ukraine is aiming to to change internally, well, as fast as possible, because there is, as I said, just no other option. But also there is understanding that while the war is still ongoing, the chances are really low that NATO members will will approve such membership. So, but I think that this hope and this goal, which is quite clear for Ukraine in terms of NATO membership and in terms of the in terms of the things that Ukraine has to do to gain this membership. I think that this brings hope and brings this kind of internal coming together with especially within the military, because people understand that if everything is going good for Ukraine in terms of towards the victory and in terms of the end of this war, then there are great chances ahead.
I do understand that the complications and how complex the situation is, and even for the other NATO allies which are supporting Ukraine at the moment. I'm talking about the US and the UK supplying Ukraine with the necessary weapons and with the necessary support for NATO membership could be devastating for these countries, as Russia has promised to attack them if that does eventually happen. But we're talking about NATO membership at the end of the war. That's still very uncertain, Anna. Realistically, when is the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky really looking at a NATO membership?
I agree, and also there is a big question: what should it be, the end of the war? Because many people, within Ukraine, experts, allies, this question is discussed, and everyone has different opinions on how the victory or the end of the war should look like, because it is a very for some people it's difficult to realize that for instance Ukraine will get all the territories back, or for some people believe that this could happen. Some people believe that this is not the case and discuss a possibility that Ukraine will join NATO with those territories that would be left. So it is an extremely complicated question, and I think that we better discuss it at the point when at least there is understanding of what possible end of the war could be, because at this point there is, as you correctly said, there is no understanding, and if this will happen and when. Most of people and most of experts believe that eventually this will happen, the war will end, but again, what would be the territory of Ukraine at that point? What would be the final the negotiation? What negotiation would bring to? What would be the agreement, and so on and so forth? So there are a lot of things to be considered, and what I can say, like within Ukraine, inside of Ukraine, there is a belief that it will be a certain shape of agreement and a certain shape of Ukraine that will definitely be left under Ukrainian governance as independent state, and apparently, and this would be probably considered as a country to join NATO. At least this is what discussed, but of course we cannot say at this point for sure, and we definitely don't know what is discussed behind the closed doors, and we definitely don't know what are the additional options, because when certain agreement is coming, is happening, for instance, then we will probably hear much more options from different parties than we can discuss right now.
Yes, Anna, and it is very likely that the current map of Ukraine could change at the end of the war. That is realistic. But look, moving forward, I mean, with this NATO membership, does Ukraine foresee a NATO membership without Russia?
Well, yes, I think that Ukrainian position here, that Ukraine will not, I mean, Ukraine will consider NATO as the only option to have a chance for peace in the future. And this is what also President Zelensky mentioned, that if Ukraine would have been in the member of the alliance, then this war would never happen. And this is actually a belief of a lot of people here in Ukraine. And again, a lot of experts are talking about it, that well, Russia's communication, at least this external communication and external messages that Russian officials are saying, they often are different from what is really happening. And in Ukraine, there is a belief that the only option for the country which will remain on the map, so as you said, the current shape of Ukraine could change, but what will be left and what would be left as an independent state, the only option for long-term peace would be the membership in the alliance. Otherwise, Russia will just come back with a large-scale war in the upcoming years when it is more prepared. So this is probably the main point of why Ukraine is so certain that it will be aiming NATO despite anything.
How is Ukraine reacting to news of the North Korean missile that struck Kyiv earlier this year?
Well, first of all, this is Ukrainian officials commenting on this as a breakage of law, of the wartime law, and of the UN sanctions. Of course, Ukrainian officials are highlighting the point to the allies and to the rest of the world that that Russia and North Korea are cooperating, and this is not and this is something that that should be the other countries should react to this, and as we've heard from the US officials, that Ukraine already received a certain amount of ATACMS missiles, which was actually a response to the North Korean missiles used by Russia. And I think that this is just another confirmation that Russia would use whatever they can to attack Ukraine, and that allies basically also can react with more ammunition supply and long-range missiles as well, because this is what was discussed for quite a long time, and some countries are still hesitating if they should send long-range missiles to Ukraine. So Ukraine, just once again, and the Ukrainian authorities are sure that this will continue, that Russia will be continue to use North Korean missiles, because this is something that the same as Iranian drones, which are used every day. So this is something that that is not a surprise anymore. It's just another confirmation that Russia and North Korea are cooperating in the military area.
Anna, thanks again for your reporting, and do stay safe in Kyiv.
Thank you.